Hello, everyone. We are the Center for Global Justice. I am Lulu Guerrero, and I'm very pleased to have you here. Before we start, please remember we work here in San Miguel. This project has been here for 20 years, and it's very important that we have your support and your assistance. And if it's possible to have donations for the center, we will be very grateful. So let's start with our conference. Lena Bartula is an artist, writer, curator, gallerist, storyteller, and transplant from the USA. A recycle artist whose main medium is textile. She has lived and worked in Mexico since 2004. Inspired by the Mesoamerican dress known as a huipil, she stitches and collages imaginary garments and fabric constructions. So Lena will tell us about this beautiful project. First, she will tell us how she thought she could start doing this project, and then she will explain some of the word in each of these pieces and the help she has gotten from different people from Mexico, different places in Mexico and different places in other countries. And after she explains that, we can move to the Q&A session, so you can ask her anything, any questions that you have, and she will be very pleased to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Lulu, and thank you, Global Justice. I'm really honored to be here. And so how did this project start? That's a good place to start, I think. Palestine had not been on my radar as it is now for many of us, except for maybe 1 year before October of 2023, when I can remember seeing the Israelis on the one side of the bank, and they would be photographing their fiestas and shooting their bombs and across the river. And that's all really I knew was going on. So after, shall we call it I hate to say October 7th, because everybody goes, yeah, but what about October 7th? And that really irritates all of us in this room, I know, because we know it didn't start there. But for those of us whose radar was really shifted on that day, I would say what happened to me was watching the journalists like Bisan and Motaz, the journalists that were on the ground in Palestine, showing on Instagram what they saw, what they were living through. And each one of them, every time, would say, do you even see us? We feel like no one knows this is happening. No one is coming to help us. Are you even looking? And I kept having this vision of eyes. And so one day I just sat down with my journal and I started drawing. And first I do dresses. I drew a picture of a dress because as a textile artist, I always go to how do I mend the world with the work that I know? And that doesn't take me out into the streets, and it doesn't take me into the offices of the mayor or anything like that. It takes me into my studio. So I'm thinking I could make a dress, but then I don't really make dresses. What I make is huipiles, which, as probably everyone knows, this that I'm wearing is a huipil. And I don't make them to wear, I make them as art pieces. So I thought, okay, what if I did eyes on a huipil? And that's kind of where it started. And I pulled out all the fabrics that I had, and I started thinking, well, I'll start with this one size and see if I even know what I'm doing, see if it works. And I did 2 or 3 of those pieces, which I'll just show you how they look. And I started with a 6-inch square. And then I started cutting out eyes. And after I made 3 or 4, I felt like maybe this could be something. Maybe it's something that I could work with. What Lulu is showing you right now came after the fact when I decided to do prayer flags, because prayer flags are a really good indication of how you can either connect with the gods that are going to help you, or the spirits, or let the prayers you say fly into the ethers. And so rather than a Tibetan or a Buddhist flag, I made eye patches, eye squares. And so these are going to be available at our auction as well. But for now, we just started with a square just like that. And after I got a few done, I called a few friends and said, I'm having this vision and I don't know what to do with it. Could you meet me for coffee? And so I told them of the idea. I didn't know where I was going with it. I thought perhaps I could call some friends to stitch with me. I didn't think further than that. But they all loved the idea and they all said, how can we help? And that was like the impetus to just keep stitching. So I went home and I wrote about it. I wrote to some friends about it. And then a woman came to see me who had done a project similar to this, a stitching project to end gun violence in the US. And I said, can you give me some starters, some hints, that could help me figure out how to make something of this besides just in my studio. So she said, she gave me some consultation, and that was really beautiful. And one of the most important things she said, which was really scary at the time, was this project is bigger than you are. Just be prepared for that. Are you prepared for that? And I just went, yeah, I think I am, not knowing where it would go or when, So that's how we started. One of the original women in the group said, I'll write an article. And the other one said, I'll do some writing for you. I'll do some photography for you. And it grew from there. And so the more I talked about it and invited people to the studio, I was also gifted with 2 really big boxes of fabrics a few weeks before I had the vision, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do with them. And I looked under the table in my studio, and there were these huge boxes of fabrics, cottons, beautiful things to use for this. And we've been using that ever since. And I didn't know why she gifted them to me because, yes, I'm a recycle artist. Yes, I take everything anyone ever brings me and I make art out of it. But normally I have textiles that are very ethnic. And I had told her, Cherie, she's a quilter here in town. And I had said, I don't really use quilting fabrics. I'm not really a quilter. And she's like, please take them. I don't have room to store them. So that's how we ended up with all the materials to start with. So when people would come in and say, can I bring materials? I would say, all the materials are here. And then as we started using more and more and more, of course, then people still bring fabrics all the time. So the first project we conceived of, or I conceived of and got a lot of help on, was a really oversized repeal that ended up in a museum in Mexico City, the Museo de Arte Popular, and it was the star of the show. Now, I didn't encounter any Zionists there. The curators, the director, all of the helpers, everyone there is so anti-genocide that they were thrilled to have this to speak as something in their museum. And they are still very, very proud of it. I haven't had other museum directors yet tell me they thought it was a good idea to show it in their places. And so, and at that point, I have to think about, well, do I want to say, then I won't show that piece, because that wouldn't feel like integrity to me. So then I try to explain to them that, even if it feels like you don't want to support Palestine, there are 8 genocides and 11 wars going on in our country as we speak. And if you don't think you're affected by them, you're really not, you're really short-sighted. So I think that your audience probably would resonate with just the theme of justice versus injustice. And so that's the way I'm proceeding right now, is to remember that injustice involves and affects everyone on the planet. So everyone that comes into the studio to stitch uses it as grief therapy, because they've been sitting at home with no solidarity, watching what I was watching on Instagram, thinking, how do I hold this in my heart? It's too much to bear. I can't look at it. And so I just say, just keep stitching. Don't even go there if you don't want to. We can all have a discussion, or we can work in silence. Wherever you need to go with your grief is fine with me. And I'll tell you a little story about why that is really important to me. Grief therapy and quilting is in my DNA, because my parents lost their firstborn child at the age of 5. He was killed by a hit and run driver. And my mom never knew how to get over that grief, that horrible tragedy of your firstborn, you can imagine. And they didn't have grief therapy or trauma therapy the way we have it now. This was like 1938, I think. And so one day, finally, her doctor said, Catherine, I think you should join a sewing circle. Maybe go stitch with some other women that are maybe not having the same problem, but they're needing to have other women to talk to. And they're stitching their way through it. And my mom took him up on it, and she stitched quilt after quilt after quilt after quilt for 6 or 7 years until she was able to birth her next child. And then she just kept birthing children, waiting to, another part of the story is that I'm here and all my sisters are here because when she finally started having babies, she realized what she really wanted was to replace her son, and she had 7 girls in a row. So she finally got a boy at the end, and we all got quilts as we were growing up, I don't think we really understood the depth of her grief, but we knew from that quilt all of the heart she had put into those pieces. And as we know, people around the world do this with their grief. They do a lot of quilting in so many societies. So I never was tempted to be a quilter, but it all came back to me knowing that it is part of me. It is part of my cellular memory as I'm stitching my grief for Palestine. And it makes total sense to me now. And so those are the kind of stories we tell around the table when we're all stitching together. Everyone has a quilt story. Everyone has a trauma story. And some people are telling me how healing it is, how they were so stuck and didn't know where to go with their sadness. And so that's making a difference. Now that's here in San Miguel, but I started posting on Facebook and Instagram and getting people from Seattle, Mexico City, Mazatlan, Oaxaca, Colorado, New York, different places that said, how can we join you? How can we help? And so I have devised this rules and spec sheet of the do's and don'ts, so that when they come back, they're the right size and they're the right fabric, to make it really simple for us to stitch pieces together and have them be sort of cohesive. And that's how all of it's how the first repeal came out. So then we thought, we really need to raise some funds. At first, we asked for 100 peso donation per square, and we made like 5 donations to Mautwa and to UNRWA, and then the donations started drying up. So we're like, how are we going to raise funds now? And that's when we decided on the small quilts. So I'm going to hand the mic to Lulu while I hold these quilts up for you. Is that a good idea? So, or can you just sort of see them? Okay. So these quilts and the one that was in the museum are the product of, at this point, somewhere between 125 and 140 people sending their stitches. And so none of them are very cohesive, but they're all beautiful. Some of the pieces are done by women who said, I've never stitched before, but I don't know what else to do, and I really want to join you. And so we have one stitcher in San Miguel here that came and said, can someone show me how to thread a needle? And we were like, wait, what? And someone did. And within 3 days, she was so addicted to this. She was the teacher for everybody else. And so we stitch them together, and it's still all donated fabrics that you're looking at. They're all handmade, hand stitched. And we were gifted with 2 boxes of buttons and lots of laces and, you know, different kinds of what we call adornos, decorations. And really, other than the sizes, there's not a lot of rules to it, except that the eye has to be open, no going back to sleep. And so that's the idea of it. These are called witness quilts, and it's the most we can do right now. If our politicians, our leaders are not going to make a difference, and we can't help them make a difference, we can at least continue to witness. And so the witness quilt, each one will have its own name based on either, well, the one you're looking at now, I know will have the name of I See You. That's the only one that has words on it. It was done by a LA jewelry designer who lives in Lake Chapala. And he was visiting San Miguel and said, I want to be a part of this project. And I just gave him the directions, you know, but then it came back with the letters and I thought, okay, well, that kind of has its own name. And that does, every time I post on Instagram and Facebook, it's giving people the reminder, do not go back to sleep. It is not time to stop looking at Palestine. It is not time to stop talking about it. And so all of these quilts, plus a few more things, the prayer flags, for example. These, we'll have maybe a dozen sets of prayer flags. We also have, we have a friend named Sutopa who lives part of every year here in San Miguel, but she is originally from Australia and she lives in India most of the year. So this year when she came, she said, I'm really not a stitcher, but I have some jewelry, artware I would like to donate. And so for our auction, she has made these beautiful, she's also a recycle artist, which is where we connect. So she's made some beautiful artware pendants that she will auction and that we will auction. 100% of all of this will go to a Palestinian, either an organization that can get through with medical supplies, medicines, or food. And so each time I donate, in the past, I have to see whose trucks are getting through, and that's where we send our money. With this one, we haven't decided on just one. When we get this auction going, if it's a silent auction, we think what could happen is that with each sheet by each piece, we could have a list of, say, 4 or 5 organizations, and the person who wins gets to select which organization that she would want, she or he would want to, the money to go to. Or if they don't want one of those, but they have this one that's really dear to their heart, a school or a hospital or something like that, that can be decided at that time too. So what else am I missing? Let me see. Oh, just as a little bit of my background, this is not my first rodeo. I have been working starting with violence against women. Ending violence against women was my go-to heart place for many years, and again, making art in that realm. The most recent one, well, another one further back was probably Ser Mujer. Anyone who has worked or lived in San Miguel probably knows about Ser Mujer. It's women empowering other women in Mexico and standing against violence against women as well. And then the most recent, I've been working with Casa Aba in Celaya. And so immigration and refugee centers are a really important part of what I do as well. And then there's the environment and standing against plastic and so many things. So this is kind of the way I work, a prayer for every stitch in everything that I do. And that has sustained me for sure for the 20 years that I've been textiling, and beyond that when I was a painter for 30 years. So that's a little bit of my background. I've never been really good at painting what matches your sofa, so I won't be stitching anything that matches your sofa, but look how great this one looks with that, and I feel like, and our whole group feels like these are such beautiful art pieces that they shouldn't be a problem. We haven't decided yet where the event yet is going to be, but I'm going to let Lulu tell you a little bit about all the events we have, and including this auction. And yeah, I think maybe that's as much as I have to say right now.
So before moving to the Q&A session, we have a big event in October from the 8th to the 12th. It's called Voces por Palestina, and we will have Lena with all of these pieces and her group. We will have poetry, music. We will have documentaries about Palestine, and the ambassador of Palestine in Mexico is coming to tell us more about his country. So it's 5 days of events. We have been facing some troubles here in town to get a venue. It's like many of them tell you that they don't want to get into politics. So we still have to find this place. So as long as as soon as we find the place, we will let you know. So please continue checking all of the information in the Center for Global Justice. The groups that are supporting this week of events, it's the Center for Global Justice, Lena's Gallery, and a social group. I don't know how to say it. It's a group about Palestine called San Miguel por Palestina. So we hope to find a venue very soon. And the donations and the money that is raised from all of the events this week will go to different groups to help Palestine. So now we are moving to the Q&A session.
Thank you.
I have a practical suggestion and a practical comment. The question is, I see the little hangers on the side and I understand. Do you have a source for those? For somebody who might make those just long enough?
I do.
Okay, I'll talk to you about that after.
Okay.
if you
It's
want.
just a simple piece of rebar that's cleaned off by the herrero that lives in Colonia Guadalupe.
Oh, great.
And he would be happy to give me or you or anyone else more work.
Nice.
So we'll have those hanging, and probably if you buy one that's has a hanger, you get the hanger anyway. So
I had
But
difficulty in the
if you
past
want
getting
more,
hangers for rugs.
no problem. We'll get you some.
The comment is this: I've been to many silent auctions, and
Mhm.
maybe you'll tell me this doesn't work this way, where I put in a bid on several very similar things. I only want one, and so I don't know if you can somehow get around at that, or when the person wins the second auction can say, I already bought one earlier. That's just something to think about.
Okay.
You know what I
I've never
mean?
done an auction either, so
Well,
somebody will know the
I
answer.
see, two that appeal to me more than the third, and I
Mhm.
might put my name on both. And yes, I could put it lower, but it's just something.
There'll be
to think about.
definitely These will be separate.
They'll all be separate.
These will be separate.
Right,
This
that's what
will
I
be
mean. If I was
Quilt one,
interested.
quilt two, quilt
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
I don't want two, I just want one.
I
Okay,
get it. Yeah.
thank
Thank
you.
you for that. That's important and a good question. Yeah. Anybody else want to have a comment or a question? And I don't know if I mentioned it, that we call this organization Yo Te Veo SMA. So it means I see you, but I had to add the SMA so that we would know where we're located.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and
Beautiful, by the way. Just
thank you so much. Well, they have a lot of heart in them from everyone. This is like direct from heart to hand.
Yeah. I've gotten things like this before, but it's on foreign travels, you know,
Uh-huh.
and in domestic
Mhm.
industry or in Turkey, for example, everywhere, everything. So I've got a lot of
Sure.
paintings and stuff,
Okay,
but
well,
I love them. It just-
thank you. We'll see you at the auction.
Just, can you hear me? All right.
Yeah.
I'm sort of wondering about the connection. There was a young woman named Louisa who at the poetry group yesterday bought, I'm sure these were curtains made of these, she said something like 380 different different squares. And so they were quite extraordinary. She also talked about a program on Palestine that's going to be held here. I think it's in October. Is that right? And no, I'm going to be on it also. So it's an interesting coincidence to see it one day later be at this.
Yeah, Luisa has been with us almost since day one.
Ah,
And okay, here's the secret that nobody hears because I'm whispering, right? Luisa was the one that came and said, can someone show me how to thread a needle? And when she tells that story, people just laugh because she just goes so fast and does such a great job.
oh, yeah.
And she's been with us ever since. And in fact, in December, she took some of the squares that had not been put together yet back to Ziruin in Michoacan to her family because they wanted to stitch together. And then this month, she took them again and she brought back, I think, 34, 35 squares that cousins, mother, sisters, brothers, everybody stitched together for the week that she was there. So she's quite involved in Yoteveo. Yeah, so that's not a coincidence. It's great serendipity. Yeah, and she will, yeah, we will be hearing her
Yeah.
her poems.
She's quite an energetic person.
She's all energy. She's just,
Yeah.
we're really happy to have her too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
So anyone that wants to come and stitch with us is invited to come by Thursdays and Fridays from 12 to 4. If that doesn't work for you, just talk to me and tell me what does work. Sometimes people knock on the door and say, can I please come in and stitch? And because I live in my space, it's really easy to say, that's all I'm doing today, so come in, and then if that's what works for people, that's what works. If I'm available, you can come stitch any day. And if you have friends that are out of town and they are on Zoom or they're watching my Facebook page or whatever, and they want to be involved, I can just send them the spec sheet and they can start their own group. Some groups say, can you send us some fabrics? And some say, oh no, we have so many fabrics, we'll do our own. And then if they're within Mexico, they send them back to us by estafeta. And if they're in the States, they wait for someone to come back that's traveling anyway, or perhaps FedEx. So there's all kinds of ways to join us. If you don't stitch, then there's something else that you can do if you want to be involved.
Where is the stitching room?
The stitching room is at Julian Carrillo 1 in Colonia Guadalupe. So it's my gallery that's called La Huipilista Art Space. And if you know where Heels is, the Tienda Heel, across the street, closer to Calzada de la Luz. So it's a gallery and a art space, and I really don't call it a gallery. It's a place that's open to all community events. We do poetry readings, book presentations, salons, workshops, exhibitions. You pitch me a project and it's there for you. So it's been a really good morphing place. And now I have enough chairs to fill a room if we want to show a film or something like that. So it's been a really, really good, convenient location. Plus a much beloved, I think, center in town. So is that all? Helene?
Well, I don't have can you hear me? I don't have exactly a question, but something really moved me. Before this meeting started, there was some talk about not getting a great reception for protesting or anything about Palestine in San Miguel. That was a bit of the flavor. And yet, as you talk, Lena, I'm so struck by kind of this invisible wave heading towards your gallery. And it seems like mostly you just put it on Facebook. You know, Louisa probably told half the town, but still. As the juxtaposition of those two things, the kind of antagonism, if I could call it that, and the desire to be part of what you're doing really struck me. So thanks.
Well, thank you, Helene. I hope that carries us through into a big, huge, successful event. I wanted to do an event, Lulu wanted to do an event, and we just somehow hooked up. And now it's going to be bigger and better than either one of us could have done individually. And also, I hope that we're going to count on our third affiliation, Centro of Global Justice, because I consider myself a global artist and I'm all about justice, and it's a perfect fit. It couldn't be better for me. Okay.
Question. So please feel free to collaborate if you would like to. If you would like to do some poetry in this event, if you would like to do, we have a small group of children here in San Miguel and they are working on 1 or 2 songs. So it's like a very open collaboration. If you have ideas of how do we get a venue, so please feel free to let us know.
You're on? Okay. I talked with Louisa yesterday about possibly doing something concerning my work with Israeli Bedouin, who are Palestinians, obviously. So that was one topic, and I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it, but I will do it if it's so desired.
Thank you.
And as Lulu was speaking, I was thinking, we're not all poets, but some of us do really like to read. And so I would offer this poetry reading up to people who fall in love with some Palestinian poems that want to just come in and read their poetry, not their own poetry. That's another way to expand their voices. Because I don't know if you follow them, but there are some really, really dynamic poems coming out of Palestine. And not only recently, but for a very long time. They're very well known around the world globally as poets. So I kind of look forward to that. Maybe I'll even read 1 or 2 because I have a lot of favorites. So I encourage you to read some and see if you feel like sharing it with an audience.
Thank you, Lena. Any more questions or comments? Okay, so thank you very much for coming today. And please continue to be in touch with us here in Global Justice and with Lena's gallery to know more about this event. And if you have any ideas, they are welcome. And that's all for today. Thank you very much.